DG, are you ready for the first session of the fourth Western Balkan Digital Summit? I'm really thrilled to discover the amazing speakers and panelists who will help us discuss the topic of skills and competencies as essential elements of digital transformation, DG.
Ha! Big deal, Radoje. I suggest that all you humans download the skills into your memory and keep updating. Or else let us, artificial intelligences, do the job.
Keep your loudspeakers shut. You're an artificial intelligence. You're not supposed to be sarcastic. Come on, DG. Take care. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you the first keynote speaker before the panel. She's Ms. Cori Zarek. Cori Zarek is the Executive Director of the Beek Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University. She served as a Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the United States, where she led the US government's work with the Global Open Government Partnership. She's also Mozilla Foundation Fellow in Technology Policy. At Georgetown, Cori teaches Data for Social Impact, and she serves on the university's Tech and Society Steering Committee. Ms. Zarek, we are ready.
Hello, and thank you for including me as part of the Western Balkans Digital Summit. I'm so glad to be with you today. My name is Cori Zarek, and I'm a professor at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I run a center on our campus called the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation that brings together students, expert practitioners, and extended networks to work on projects that solve societal challenges using data, design, and technology to drive toward better and more equitable outcomes. Our work is well aligned with the goals of this event. I also previously served as the Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the United States, where I had the opportunity to help transform the public sector in the US. One thing we knew well during that time is that many of us around the world are solving similar problems to carry out government missions and deliver services to the public. We work in similar ways, and it was always really helpful when we could meet each other and learn from each other. But one problem is that we were all so busy building something new and working through all the challenges of introducing change inside of a big bureaucracy that we never had the time to reflect on what we were learning or to write it down so that we could really share what works far and wide. I joined Georgetown University to create a space where we could better document what works and build networks to share those resources and support one another. Academia is a great place to conduct research and capture lessons learned, and we can also advocate for better policies and practices based on what we've learned and experiment with new ways of working. And very importantly, we can also train and teach both the next generation of public sector technologists and the current workforce who may not have developed skills in working with data or applying human-centered design or buying and building the technology systems we rely on. As you dig into the conversation as part of the digital skills and competencies pillar, two things I'd be interested to hear more about are, first, what is something promising and innovative where you are that should be documented so it can be shared and replicated in other places? And second, what skills and practices can academic institutions like ours prioritize to ensure we have both the current workforce we need to deliver services well and the pipeline for the future workforce also? Thanks again for having me today. I hope you have a great conference.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much, Professor Zarek. And now we'll give the floor to Mr. Kemal Bajramovic, who will be the moderator of the first panel named Growing and Sustaining Leadership and Digital Skills in Government. Kemal is the head of experimentation within the UNDP Accelerator Lab in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which employs the methods of agile startups with the goal of devising and testing novel ideas that can either disrupt or complement social development projects. In his 15 years of experience within public administration, he has managed the development of several government-wide digital solutions. And just stand by to discover the amazing list of panelists that he will present to us. Mr. Bajramovic, the stage is yours. Just a moment. Your microphone is muted, Mr. Bajramovic.
Typical
Okay,
problem.
now it's
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you very much, Radoje. Good morning and welcome to the first panel dedicated to advancing digital skills and competencies in government for digital transformation of our region. Thanks to the audience so much for taking time from your busy Monday schedule and joining us live this morning. As Radoje said, my name is Kemal Bajramovic and I am a UNDP Accelerator Lab member in Bosnia and Herzegovina and very honored to host this session. Today we have such an amazing panel where we'll be talking about how to initiate and sustain transformational leadership which would make governments in the region faster, more flexible, integrated and innovative in service delivery. As previously said, for that change to happen, we need different culture, mindset and practices than in traditional government. I'm so privileged to be able to exchange on this topic with our panel members. Joining us live, I welcome our distinguished panel members. Ms. Tamara Srzentic, Minister of Public Administration, Digital Society and Media in Montenegro. Ms. Tatjana Matic, Minister of Trade, Tourism and Telecommunications from Government of Serbia, who will join us through a pre-recorded address. Ms. Alexandra Nakeva-Ruzin, Coordinator for the National Platform for Digital Learning of Ministry of Education and Science in North Macedonia. Ms. Florenza Hadji, Director General of the Development Programs and Cooperation Unit in the Prime Minister's Office in Albania, and Ms. Alia Al-Yassir, UN Women Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia. Thank you very much to all for joining us today. Before we dive into the panel discussions, I would like to take a temperature of the room. So I'm opening a poll for the audience on the Digital Summit platform. And the question is about imagining the ideal digital government, the one which involves citizens and businesses in dialogue to achieve better outcomes, the one which provides the best possible online user experience in its digital service provisioning, which optimizes its internal efficiency with digital tools, and most importantly, where leaders actively promote collaboration among departments and with external partners to find new innovative solutions for policy challenges. Add whatever you think is an ideal digitally empowered government. Now, how would you rate your government against this ideal? Let's leave like 20 seconds for your responses. Okay, that's interesting. I see that
Kemal?
not many of you actually managed to respond,
Okay.
but nevertheless, let's proceed. So
whose turn it was to speak, Kemal? Maybe they were a bit confused it was up to whom to speak right now.
No. I placed the poll for the audience via the Digital Summit platform. So the audience in the live discussion feature on the polls, they have an opportunity to respond to the question. So this is for the audience only. Sorry for if this is confusing, but on the live streaming of our panel, there is a question in the live discussion section polls and the question for the audience. But let's move to the panel itself. So our goal today, whatever your role is in the digital transition of the societies and economies in our region, that you will come away today with something, a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new practice that you can apply to be more successful. So here's the format of this panel to give you an idea of what to expect. I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that hopefully draws out some of the themes and trends we should be thinking about. And then at the end of the panel today, we'll open up the floor to answer specific questions that you have potentially posted over the platform. So audience, if you have questions, you can submit them in the questions tab of the live discussion feature in your lower right part of the screen where the poll was streamed just a few seconds ago. So other participants will be able to upvote the question, to highlight it, and then we will ask our distinguished panel members to potentially answer on that question. I hope it sounds good, and let's get started with the panel. First, a big thank you, Minister Strzentich, for the great and excellent support and effort given by you and your team in organizing and managing Digital Summit this year. So I would kindly ask you to elaborate. What are the key digital transition priorities for Montenegro and the region? What are the digital leadership and digital skills challenges linked to these priorities?
Thank you so much, Kemal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, y'all. Great to see you this morning. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm immensely grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of this panel today and to be able to speak to the topic that is truly most near and dear to my heart. But also really honored and thrilled to be in the presence of these fierce women leaders, each who comes from a different background and has a very unique perspective and point of view, both from like the perspective of the why and the visionary, and then also the how, the practitioner level experience in this field. And so I'm really looking forward to digging in and exchanging good practices with you all and learning from you. So thank you in advance. So to the first part of your question, Kemal, when it comes to digital transformation, we started with the imperative that the people of Montenegro deserve a government that meets them where they are. And so meets them where they are during their day-to-day lives. Just make it as simple as that. So during my opening remarks, I noted that the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that we simply cannot be an offline government in an online world. So the people of Montenegro are itching for the fast-tracked digital transformation. So to make this leap forward, we are, as they would say in the United States, we are building the plane while we are flying it. But to ensure we're aiming in a meaningful direction, we have to set the strong foundation. So to that end, I'm proud of the work of our teams have done in terms of partnering with the business, tech sector, and community to co-design Montenegro's first digital transformation strategy. And the strategy really aims at setting pillars and action plan for how might we propel world-leading digital government and foster digital economy that puts people first and delivers a more prosperous future for the people we serve. And one of the biggest challenges I've encountered when starting my post here in this administration was a very small team and not adequately skilled team that has a huge tech portfolio to lead for the entire government. And so that's why, in addition to designing a first digital strategy and standards, we're focusing on building capacity within the government and empowering public servants with the training. So I'll highlight a few relevant efforts here where we'll appreciate everybody's support and lessons learned too, as we're moving forward and flying the plane, as I said. A major initiative we are working on is launching Office of Digital Services called Montenegro Digital. And here we are leaning on some of the most successful models from governments, digital transformation like Estonia, with our friend Sim Sticker here, who is helping us a lot with that, UK and USA. We are building on what they've done in Obama's White House as a part of the United States Digital Services team, and what my team has done in California as a part of Governor Newsom's Office of Digital Innovation. And so we're doing it here and trying to roll it out in a phased manner in Montenegro. To just give you a bit of context, some of you might have heard of United States Digital Services. This was the office that Obama created within the White House following the 3-month fix of the disastrous healthcare.gov website. And the USDS is a proven model that brings folks from private sector that deploys small, responsive groups of designers, engineers, and product managers to work with and empower civil servants to transform critical governmental services. As Sim has reflected in his speech, delivery is the strategy. So these small, nimble teams are working with ministries to solve problems. So in Montenegro, we rely on outside vendors right now to build governmental services, and oftentimes we get products that are not user-centered, so not what customers needed. They're often too expensive, so over the cost, and they're not delivered in time. So we must change the way we approach service delivery and technology investments. So Montenegro Office of Digital Services, Montenegro Digital aims precisely at that, to deliver better governmental services to the people of Montenegro through the deep understanding of user needs, technology, and design. So we are first starting with what is a problem that we are trying to solve, and then there could be a simplification of a process, and there could be a human factor involved before we get to the technology. Technology is last. So we have already laid a groundwork for Montenegro Digital by proving the impact of user-centered service design and modern software development in pockets throughout the government. And so learning from our experience standing up our other offices, we have developed a detailed rollout plan. And in July, we welcomed Mikey Dickerson, who was right hand of Obama and his chief tech officer, to help us assess where we are and put together the plan for Montenegro Digital. So I'm calling you all out there to tune in, because in a few days, we'll be launching the call for innovation fellows and entrepreneurs in residence that will help us create the pipeline for folks who want to join this movement. And so please stay tuned and come and join this effort if you're interested. So the second part of your question was around digital leadership and skills. And so from my experience growing digital service delivery teams in government, I've learned that in order to meaningfully change how government operates, you need to insert private industry culture and practices within the government. And this is something Sim was also reflecting on in his speech, and Corey Zarek has touched on as well. So my dear friend Mike Bracken, former head of UK's government digital services, has said, if you want to make transformation happen and make it stick, and this piece is the hard, Sim talked about how hard it is to make that change stick. You need to be radical in changing how your organization works, but incremental in changing what it delivers. So it's not just the why and the what, but it's how, the process, the machinery of government that we need to change. So the core disciplines often used in successful private and startup companies that we need to insert in government are service design, agile, lean, product management. I find to be the core thing that we need in the government, not project, but product management. Human-centered design, content design, research, data science. So these are the hard tech skills, but we also need soft skills, what I like to actually call power skills. Emotional intelligence, conflict management, how to build and lead agile multidisciplinary teams. I think this one is actually the most powerful, how to become more acutely aware and calibrate your individual superpowers and strengths to move things forward. And so in all my teams, I've tried to create systemic levers to push staff into higher levels of personal growth. And the more enlightened my teammates feel, the better they are able to perform in these challenging, transformative times. And we want really the teammates to push them to become the best versions of themselves. So self-awareness and the empathy are really core to this. And there are a myriad of tests, tools, and techniques which are widely used to support this. And as Corey has urged us to document, we have this documented. We'll be launching it in our digital academy, and we'll be sharing it all with all of you who are interested in taking advantage of those.
Thank you very much, Tamara. We will have an opportunity to ask you another question in the second round of questions. Now we are moving to Tatjana Matić, Minister of Trade, Tourism and Telecommunications in Serbia, she was not able to join us live, so we'll stream her pre-recorded response. My first question to Minister Matić was actually about implementing cross-sectoral digital initiatives. What are the challenges and opportunities in that area, especially since the ministry that is under the Mrs. Matić leadership has so many diverse responsibilities. So let's hear Minister Matić's response.
The scope of the Ministry of Trade, Tourism and Telecommunications is wide. Despite the fact that the areas of trade, tourism and electronic communications and the information society are significantly different when viewed separately, together they represent the basis for the development of the economy and modern society. One example of cooperation between sectors is the project Digitalization of the Tourist Offer of Republic of Serbia. The project includes several components, including providing broadband access and building Wi-Fi networks for cultural heritage sites, creating a software platform that will take the role of digital tourist guide and platform for advertising accompanying content near the site, providing the necessary hardware infrastructure for application solutions, platform development, for booking and paying for accommodation, as well as creating multimedia digital content for 60 target locations. Also, as a result of digitalization in the field of tourism, since October 2020, in-use in the Central Information System of e-Tourists, which combines all data for accommodation in the Republic of Serbia and which enables electronic check-in and check-out of guests, daily insight into the state and tourist traffic and reporting for statistical and marketing purposes in real time. The development of e-commerce is also one example of the implementation of a cross-sectoral initiative. A relevant legislative framework has been established. A plan for strengthening e-commerce has been developed, and consumer confidence in this way of shopping has much improved. In addition to e-commerce, various electronic services are available today that significantly facilitate everyday life and more efficient business for citizens and businessmen. Digitalization is one of the priorities of the Ministry of Trade, Tourism and Telecommunications and the government of the Republic of Serbia also. Broadband infrastructure in the basis for the development of digital society and the use of modern digital services, so the Ministry is working on further development of broadband networks with the aim of overcoming the digital gap between urban and rural areas and enable internet access to all households in Serbia by 2025. In June 2020, a new project for the development of broadband access in rural areas was launched with the aim of supporting private sector investment in rural areas where interest in investing in the development of the next generation networks is limited, so-called white and gray zones. During the first phase of the project, which is already underway, the Ministry will enable the connection of approximately 450 schools, public institutions in rural areas with the existing backbone of the optical network. This is an incentive for the private sector to develop last-mile infrastructure for surrounding households and makes operator investments financially sustainable. In this way, in the first phase alone, the development of broadband infrastructure will gradually enable high-speed internet access for about 80,000 households in rural areas. The second phase of the project is planned for the period 2022-2024 and consists of two parts. In the first part, it is planned to provide broadband access in about 700 rural settlements for about 150,000 households. Additionally, within the second part, it is planned to provide internet access for about 60,000 households and in about 600 rural settlements. The infrastructure will be completely provided by the relevant ministry and made available for electronic communications operators. One of the important projects of the ministry is the Connected School project, which provides equal opportunities and further development of education for all students through the development of ICT infrastructure for educational institutions. A wireless local area network has already been built in over 900 school buildings throughout Serbia, and construction is planned in all school buildings. Today, broadband access has been provided for more than 1,600 schools in Serbia, and by the end of this year, it will be provided for all school facilities, for about 4,000 main and other facilities. In this way, over 60% of students in Serbia have already been provided with internet access in a safe environment of the academic network of the Republic of Serbia. Also, the Republic of Serbia was the first in the region to adopt a strategy for the development of digital skills for the period from 2020 to 2024. The adoption of this strategy is important for the digital transformation of our society, as well as for the implementation of measures and activities that will contribute to improving the quality of life of all citizens in a modern environment, and also to higher employment, work efficiency, and overall economic growth.
Thanks to Minister Matic. Now moving to Miss Alexandra Nakeva-Ruzin. Good morning, Alexandra. A question for you. Now, technology creates a sense that anything that can change will eventually change. And I think education is a good example of that, since digital transformation, that sector was significant even before the pandemic. I was able to read in one study that the education sector was actually the most prominent sector where this rise of use of digital services and tools happened during the pandemic. According to that study, between 38% and 43% in our region. Now, from the Macedonian experience, how should our countries close the knowledge and skills gaps for the digital transformation in government, but specifically in the education sector?
Good morning, Kemal. Good morning to all. Let me first extend my warmest congratulations to the government of Montenegro and Minister Srđančić for continuing the tradition and putting together yet another exceptional Western Balkan Digital Summit, and also to thank them for inviting me to take part in this distinguished panel and letting me share the Macedonian experience with the digital education in the digital development in the education sector. If you don't mind, I would like to share a few slides that will help the audience better and more easily follow my address. Your question is highly relevant, not only for our region, but also worldwide. Indeed, the pandemic facilitated and accelerated the use of digital technologies in schools on an unprecedented scale. Although it's worth noting that the digitalization of school did not start and it will not end with the COVID-19 pandemics. Schools have already been part and have been widely and strongly impacted by the global digital transformation over the past years, not only because schools have a significant role to play in developing students' digital competencies, but also because technology can influence the way we teach and learn. This is reflected in the duality of the term digital education, which encompasses two different but very complementary dimensions. First is the development of students' digital competencies, which are key to bridging the gap between the supply and demand on the labor market for digitally competent workforce, as well as for reducing the digital skills divide that lead to economic and social exclusion. And second is the pedagogical use of digital technologies for facilitating, advancing, and transforming the teaching and learning processes, which have or which can bring multiple benefits on many fronts. However, and notwithstanding this essential role that education systems can play in digital transformation of the economies and the societies on a global level, and especially in our region, for a long time, there was a prolonged perception of the limited potential for using digital technologies in education. This was abruptly changed with the outbreak, which put the traditional schooling to a halt, enabling continuity of the educational process only by using digital technologies for synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning. However, there have been significant variations in the effectiveness of deployed practices across the sector, not only in North Macedonia, but also worldwide. And several key factors have been identified to contribute to that. One of most prominent one being the digital competencies of teachers and their ability to use digital technologies in a confident, critical, and responsible way. Namely, findings of the 2018 International Computer and Information Literacy Study show that improvements in digital infrastructure on its own do not systematically lead to integration and pedagogical use of digital technology in schools. Obviously, as the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research was reported stating, no technology makes a good education. It is up to the teachers who need to be qualified to use digital technologies and teach digital competencies. Hence, the development of teachers' digital competencies is considered a key factor for maximizing investments in digital education and aligning schools with the needs of the 21st century. As we can see on the slide, on the question on how to close the digital skill gaps in the education sector in the Western Balkan economies, there are various instruments that have proven that work in different education systems worldwide, which the authorities can use to this end. First one is to ensure that teachers possess digital competencies before entering the profession. And this can be done by ensuring that competencies are adequately integrated in the study programs for the initial teachers training, through modernizing the teachers' competence framework and through mandatory assessment of teachers' digital knowledge and skills during the studies or before entering the profession, ideally at both terms. And second, to ensure that teachers' digital skills continuously advance to keep up with rapid technological progress. We need to ensure that regular programs for teachers' continuous professional development incorporate a wide range of courses for digital competencies, including for pedagogical application of digital technology in teaching different subjects. In addition to formal training courses, teachers should be encouraged to actively participate in new forms of cooperation and exchange of experiences, such as professional communities and networks that can facilitate the collaboration and exchange of good practices, experiences, and methods, as well as teaching materials and didactic resources. This would be the question. I will continue. I'm very looking forward to continue with the next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. We are now moving to Ms. Florenca Hagi, Director General of the Development Programs and Cooperation Unit at the Prime Minister's Office in Albania. So, Florenca, many times we hear how government should be more responsible and adaptive to sudden changes and more proactive and innovative, and therefore work more like a business or even a startup. Minister Sezenic also mentioned about the idea of having this in a kind of a special unit in the Montenegrin government. Now, as an experienced program and project developer and R&D expert, what entrepreneurial practices or mentalities our government should adopt to be relevant on the market?
Thank you, Kemal, and thank you for having me in this panel today. I will start by saying that we all know that COVID crisis has brought some changes in the way we work, in the way we live. So somehow it has redefined our habits, like also whole industries have been redefined, and also it has brought some innovative business models to the forefront. And when we talk about business models, why not also business models in brackets in the way the government works? The post-COVID reality, of course, requires a new thinking also at the government level based on open sharing of knowledge and information for introduction of innovative policy measures to engage more and more the various actors, such as the public actors, but not only, also development partners that we work on our everyday basis, also private sector, academia, research institutions. So we have to find ways on how to engage them more in our everyday work in order to make better policies, because the policies are made for them. So we need to work closely and find these mechanisms. And to tell you the truth, COVID crisis helped somehow in this direction. As a result, many of the societal behaviors are changing also at the workplace. The workplace is now moving from on-site to online, as we also can see it from today's panel. So things also function in an online mode. So why not also in the government? They also could function in this way. We are living in a world of rapid technological developments like artificial intelligence, data economy, big data of things, 5G. We hear about these words every day in every different context. So we have to exploit and take the best from this kind of new, let's say, way of doing things. In this regard, the government of Albania is trying to be as innovative as possible in taking new initiatives that are mainly focused in taking advantage of what technology can offer. We are also trying to develop an innovative ICT ecosystem, not only for the private sector, but also for the public sector, and see how the public sector can best take advantage of this ecosystem, due also to the young and multilingual population that we have. Our population is more and more looking for self-employment, and digital transformation helps in this. In this context, we have taken measures to approve also incentives for the ICT sector. And now, for example, there is a very low capital requirement to set up an ICT business in Albania. And this has helped for this sector to develop more. In the recent year, there has been also an increase in the focus in terms of policies, support, and budget on fostering this entrepreneurship culture and innovation by the government and also by development partners. The Albanian government has also embarked in a journey to enable a pro-innovation environment for its citizens, and this mainly through the digitalization of services. Albania is embracing more and more the transparent, let's say, e-government solutions in order to enhance trust in public administration, and also efforts to increase digital literacy, because it is a problem in the country, but also in the region, as we have seen from the recent studies, and we have to take some actions in this regard. Online privacy and security, cybersecurity is also a goal of ours, and also how to make better and more to increase the quality of life of our population, but also of the private sector, and how to remove, let's say, all these bureaucracies that they encounter in their everyday life. So we also aim to contribute to the emergence of trustworthy, empowering digital environment for our citizens. And we are proud to say that about 95% of our public services are now offered online. There are about 1,200 and something services that are online now in our e-Albania platform, and all the public and the private sector can take advantage of this, and they are using the services more and more. And they are seeing that this makes their life easier. They don't need to go to offices and stay in line in order to take a document, but they just can do it from their e-access, let's say, in the e-Albania platform. So now that we are, let's say, almost finished with all the public services being online, now we are trying to make them better, to improve these online services, and also to produce documents that have this e-stamp, more and more documents that have the e-stamp, so that we remove all the bureaucracies that are left. Something else that I wanted to mention is also the public consultation of all the acts, legal acts, policies that we produce. They're all put in a platform where the public can consult them and can give their opinions. So this is something to engage, and say, the public and different actors, different partners like donors or other organizations that operate, NGOs that operate in Albania. They can give their own opinion, of course, according to the field of the policy or of the act that is put there. So this is something else that we have been working to empower more, and we can see that every day it's getting better. Something else that we're working on are also the startup and innovation policy or program, as we call it, the digital agenda. So we're really working on in this direction. In terms of ICT, we are also embarking on a journey to develop an ICT cluster as a pilot, let's say, cluster in Albania, and then move on with the other clusters. So also the smart specialization strategy is a strategy that is helping a lot in this direction, because one of the sectors that have great potential to be innovative from the data mapping that we did is ICT. So for the moment, this is what I wanted to say, but I'm open for questions at the end and for the second question, of course. Thank you, Kemal.
Thank you, Forenza. We will be back with you in some time. Now, moving to Ms. Alia Al-Yassir, UN Women Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia. Ms. Alia, we just heard about positive impacts of the digital revolution. So many good news today. But despite these good news, we know that opportunities and gains are not yet shared equitably. And in many ways, just as COVID-19 has shown that the potential of the digital technology, it has also made gender inequalities more apparent and visible. Now, access to ICTs remains a serious challenge for many women and girls, and it means they are at even more risk of being left behind. So what is your recommendation to the governments in the region on addressing the digital gender divide? What kind of leadership skills or knowledge are required for such a change?
Thank you very much, Kemal. And it's wonderful to join these esteemed panelists and dear partners, colleagues, and friends online. It really is a pleasure for me to be part of this digital summit. And just let me use this opportunity to give my special thanks to the government of Montenegro and RCC for holding the summit in such an innovative way. To answer your question, maybe I can zoom out a little bit. I think while we all agree that technology does open new arenas for the world, the reality is that there are too many women and girls who are shut out of these arenas. And I'd like to give you just some global and regional statistics that illustrate this point. There are roughly 1.7 billion women in the global south who remain unconnected. And this means that they have no access to internet or mobile phones. Worldwide, we have 327 million fewer women than men that own a smartphone or have access to the internet. On average, only 0.5% of 15-year-old girls want to become ICT professionals compared to 5% of 15-year-old boys, 10 times less. Women-owned tech startups receive less than 25% of their funding of their male counterparts. And closer to home, less than 1 in 5 ICT specialists in the EU is a woman. And a recent UN Women study in Bosnia and Herzegovina showed that 1/3 of the girls that we interviewed said that their family would not encourage them to take up university studies in STEM. Gaps in digital literacy of women and girls exist all over the world, but particularly in low and middle income countries. And these gaps are really a hindrance to women and girls' ability to compete in a global online environment. Biased social norms and stereotypes, you've heard this a lot, but it's very real, that they hold us back. We also see a lack of investment in women's access to technology that restrict them from benefiting equally from advancements. Jobs of the future will be driven by technology and innovation, but how can women and girls hope to compete if they can't even log on? If digital technology isn't equally accessible, a young generation, especially girls from marginalized groups, are at risk of exclusion and disadvantage. As you mentioned, Kemal, COVID-19 has revealed great inequalities, and it also risks reversing decades of progress in terms of gender equality. Inequalities are growing both within and between countries, including in terms of the digital divide. And it's really important that we discuss this issue from a global perspective, even if we're talking about the Western Balkans, because the countries of the Western Balkans are becoming increasingly active in this global community and tackling these development challenges that know no borders. In many parts of the world, we know digital technology is a lifeline and a critical tool to cope with the COVID-19 crisis and its aftermath. But because so many people, and especially women and girls, are disconnected, they are being left behind. So while we have to recognize these very real challenges, I think we have gotten a historic opportunity to look at digital revolution and making it work for the global good. There isn't actually, unfortunately, any single solution to closing the gender gap. We actually need holistic solutions and approaches that can tackle intersecting economic, social, political, and cultural barriers that prevent women and girls from seizing the immense opportunities that digital technologies offer. We definitely need to see it, as a previous speaker has said, as a whole ecosystem. I can't go into all of the aspects in this short intervention today, but I want to focus on two key areas. And these are based on a joint study that UN Women has undertaken together with ITU, covering many of the countries in the Western Balkans. So I want to, first of all, add my voice to the points raised by Alexandra from North Macedonia. We need gender responsive education and inclusive learning opportunities that allow for equitable, affordable, and reliable access to digital technologies. We need gender responsive education, and that means putting people first. I'm not a generic person, but we really need to take into consideration the specific needs of different groups of women and girls, men and boys in all their diversity, and ensure that any related plans are adequately budgeted and monitored to assess their effectiveness. We need to move beyond words and really move into action. And through this approach, as has been highlighted before, we need to tackle both hard and soft infrastructure. COVID-19 forced schools to close and affected 6 million students at the very least in the region. And many countries have shifted to distance and digital learning. The fortunate students in these countries had internet access at home, but for too many girls, this shift of schooling to home has been actually devastating. Girls receive access to digital technology at a later age generally than boys. And the use of digital technology of girls is often curtailed by parents more than for boys. COVID-19 revealed real limitations to online service provision. And too many homes lack the sufficient devices for students to be active participants in their online classrooms. And as we heard, teachers too were ill-equipped. Only a quarter of students in Europe are taught by digitally confident teachers. And this, unfortunately, is also a gendered issue because most of the teachers are, in fact, women. We also need to look at school curricula to make sure that students fully understand the relevance and the real-world applications of technology. The way in which STEM subjects are taught influences students' motivations to pursue careers later in life. And currently, the way that STEM subjects are being taught is not conducive to attracting more women and girls. Actually, women are less likely than men to consider a technical career. This work within the education sphere obviously needs to be linked to multiple aspects of the world of work, but I don't have time to go into that. But I will emphasize another important issue that we need governments to focus on. The other key factor is safety. Transformation needs to be in a positive direction in line with our aspirations. So we have to keep in mind that the same digital platforms that open doors to new opportunities can also be weaponized to facilitate violence against women and girls. Online space is not necessarily a safe space, and women and girls are facing heightened exposure to violence and abuse in technology-enabled spaces. The lack of transparency and accountability to address digital discrimination leads to further abuse, harassment, and online violence. While such toxic behavior may be taking place on a phone or a computer screen, it's also unfolding amidst a wider and more systematic environment of gender-based discrimination and violence. A report on the mobile gender gap found that nearly 40% of women surveyed in more than 50 of the most online populated countries had been harassed online. In Europe, the risk of online violence is highest among young women between 18 and 29 years of age. In the European Union, 1 in 10 women have experienced cyber harassment since the age of 15. We must also look at violence and discrimination through this intersectional lens and understand that certain groups of women and girls experience greater levels of violence. This is really deterring young women from engaging in public life, and it threatens to further deplete the leadership pipeline that we so desperately need. We need to invest in knowledge and tools to tackle this issue. There are promising practices that we've seen across the world. There is such a thing as the Digital Security Helpline, which is a global platform by Access Now that provides rapid response emergency assistance for women under attack. This service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in several languages, and is monitoring and drawing attention to digital rights. We also have seen in Africa a feminist safety reboot initiative that promotes understanding of gender-based violence. We'd love to see similar initiatives in the Western Balkans, bringing together not only governments across the region, but also civil society and the private sector. This would be a wonderful thing for us to see, but if I had to emphasize, it would be these 2 points for now, but there's much more to be said. But thank you, and back to you, Kamal.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alia. A lot of insights there, and just yesterday I read about the statement of the IBM CEO saying that the cybersecurity is an issue of this decade. So definitely we could talk a lot about that. But, and we are just at the middle of the panel. We have finished our first round of questions and moving to the second round. And hopefully we will achieve to have a kind of Japanese style precision, because we are the first panel on this conference, so we want to be on time. So moving back to Minister Srđanić, now your prior work experience in the California state government was in the field of digital innovation. So what are the kind of key management lessons that you have learned about how to facilitate digital transformation and introduction of innovation practices in government?
Thank you, Kemal, for that question. And I also want to say how much I appreciate all of my fellow panelists' comments. You all contributed with a different aspect. And so I will, again, kind of be focusing on a culture too, which I think should be kind of really unpacked and kind of thought about in a more intentional way. So as you all might agree, governments around the world, whether they're big or small, we all struggle with some of the same challenges, really. Calcified bureaucratical processes. Something that Sim also mentioned, there's too much focus on process. There's too much focus on liabilities and risks. We are all compliance-based machineries, and we're not focusing enough on opportunities and possibilities. So there's a lot that I could take from my previous posts, from leading teams, empowering amazing leaders in United States, and taking it to Montenegro. So one of the most successful efforts we initiated in California, which we are piloting in Montenegro, as I said earlier, is Digital Academy. And we are doing this based on the model we launched in California Office of Innovation and Digital Academy there. And the curriculum was developed in collaboration with Harvard Kennedy School and 10 countries representing 10 governments. And so we are currently translating and right-sizing that curriculum, and we're going to be launching it in phases. Just want to kind of put a little bit of a sneak peek. It's all going to be open sourced. So if you all are interested in checking it out, we'd love to share it with you. So digital transformation requires digital teams with specialized skills, but perhaps what I really want to highlight, and perhaps more importantly, it requires the conditions of innovation and models of support that enable new methods and problem-solving approaches that deliver better value and outcomes for the people. So those conditions include teams that are multidisciplinary, who work in the open, who are collaborative, and seize an experimental culture. It also takes staff who are enabled and empowered to try new things. Leaders who model servant leadership, celebrate real-world iteration and perpetual learning. Sim was talking about this. no product is ever done. We need to continue to go back to the people that we are serving and get their feedback and then improve it based on that feedback. So I'm just going to outline what in my mind modern teams and leadership of 21st century public service looks like. And this is something we have on our walls in one of our buildings. Modern leaders of 21st century foster an environment of continuous improvement, letting go of the status quo, sharing knowledge whenever possible, and inviting feedback. It really involves flattening out power structures, embracing trust, working in more fluid, networked ways. Empower teams try new things, celebrate fast failing and perpetual learning. They focus on discovering opportunities, not designing specific solutions. They value and reward experimentation, openness, and collaboration as a part of a regular business. The modern leaders of 21st centuries build multidisciplinary, diverse teams that welcome various viewpoints and skills. They lead by example and show, don't tell. And we like to say in our teams, we want demos, not the memos. I think a lot of governments are stuck in just passing out the memos. They share lessons learned, so their teams make only new mistakes. So even at the end of the digital summit, our team is going to do a retrospective to outline what we've learned, what we want to keep, what we want to watch, and what we want to change, and what actions we want to take forward as a result. They model servant leadership, where leaders exist to serve and coach team members. So you also asked me about the management lessons, and so I'll outline just a few from running the Office of Innovation and Office of Digital Services and Digital Services Academy, which we are launching in Montenegro. So my biggest success metric for myself in this job right now is how might I drive a meaningful and sustainable change? Not just how I'm gonna solve a specific problem but also how I'm gonna make a lasting change that sticks. And this is the piece that I want to kind of just dig in. How do you make a meaningful change stick? How do we empower leaders and build culture intentionally so that meaningful change sticks? So one of the lessons from running Digital Academy in USA that will apply here as well is we need to create a runway for our staff to use these new skills when they go back to their work. So imagine your teammates, they go to an amazing training, but if there aren't conditions, enabling conditions for them to use that skill set, then it just doesn't stick. So my biggest complaint with typical training in government is that people get inspiring training and they return back to business as usual. And so they do not get to use the new skills and techniques they learn because there is no support to try anything new. And the antibodies really attack that new idea that they bring to the table. So the opportunity fades and skill is lost and money is wasted, inspiration is squashed really. And so we need to create enabling conditions and give our staff an air cover in order to practice these new skills that they learn in the training. And after our staff come back from the training, we need to create that runway for them to use these skills. So that's what we are incorporating in all of our trainings as well. Another one, maybe the greatest lesson and principle I've learned leading multidisciplinary teams, is that you need to invest in nurturing safe psychological spaces. Your team must feel free and believe that they're honestly supported to fail and learn. So this must be honest and ironclad at all levels of leadership in the organization. And the second one of the teammates gets burnt for not delivering on something that was a learn, fail, fast effort, all trust is lost and your innovation efforts become almost impossible to drive forward. So in my teams, we made an effort to take the negativity out of the term failure. We even use a failure bow. And so when my teammates fail, we actually celebrate, I failed. We made a joke out of it for messing something up. So we'll follow up almost every usage of the term failure with the statement, what we learned was. So if you don't think your organization can flip the negativity on failure, then you might want to take fail out of the nomenclature altogether. And you might want to call everything a learning, really. And so we're really trying to build a learning organization here. Another one I'll mention is moving from a culture of individual contributors to the team culture. And this is really important to the culture I come in here. Individual contributors get swallowed by a larger organization, and this process really needs a team. Teams of 4 or multiples of 2, so they can like keep each other back and help each other. And just for the end, I want to emphasize, again, it's not about technology, even though digital is in the epicenter of everything we're talking. It's about problem definition and iterating solutions. It's that machinery of government, the culture, the teams, how we empower them to deliver. We need to resist the temptation to making everything about technology. Technology is just tool that enables transformation to happen, but it's not the result. So we need to focus on improving the human-based workflows. Let's map out the journey, let's identify pain points and opportunities, and then let's build a solution that really works. Ask what makes the most sense to get the job done if technology or existing limitations were not the factor. And when those are working better, then add technology on the top after the human factor. And this will also gain us a buy-in that we really truly need here to improve the human condition and the human experience in the organization for both people who are running our services and the people on the other side of the services who are experiencing them. So those are just like some tidbits around the culture and the way we are building things together that I wanted to highlight. Appreciate the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tamara. Very powerful messages. Thank you for giving them to us. So we now move back to Minister Matic. She mentioned in her first address the newly adopted Information Society and Cybersecurity Strategy, which actually positions digital capacities of citizens and public and private sector employees very high on the government agenda. So my question to Minister Matic was, what are some very concrete activities that the ministry is planning to implement in this regard? So let's see.
One of the three specific objectives of the Information Society and Information Security Development Strategy of the Republic of Serbia for the period 2021-2026 is improvement of citizens' digital knowledge and skills, strengthening the capacities of public and private sector employees to use new technologies, and improvement of digital infrastructure in education institutions. Realization of that objective will be based on 4 measures that encompass 11 activities. Measure 1.1 includes improvement of digital knowledge, skills, and capacities of citizens and employees through trainings aimed at increased usage of ICT, and is implemented through the following key activities. Support programs for association through award of funds for implementation of programs in the field of development of the information society. Then trainings aimed at improving teachers' competencies in the field of information and communication technologies, and trainings aimed at improving digital competencies of employees in the public administration. Popularization and promotion of the use of ICT through the Serbian Korean Information Access Center is also one of the aims. Measure 1.2 includes promotion of useful, creative, and secure usage of information technologies through organization of educational and media campaigns and prize competition, and is implemented through the following activities. First of all, activity 1 is IT Caravan, an educational campaign for promotion of useful, creative, and secure usage of information technologies. Then activity 2, popularization and promotion of the use of ICT in classes through a prize competitor titled Digital Classes, and promotional campaign Smart and Safe. Measure 1.3 includes improvement and promotion of the work of the National Contact Center for Child Safety on the Internet. Here we have trainings aimed at strengthening the capacities of employees in institutions of the system for the purpose of applying of the regulation and safety and protection of children in the use of information and communication technologies, and provision of information and education of children, parents and teachers in child safety on the Internet through organization of trainings in schools. Measure 1.4 is improvement of the digital infrastructure in educational institutions through continuation of connection of all central, primary and secondary school facilities, cultural institutions and public libraries in Serbia to the AMRES network, and development of the information and communication infrastructure in primary and secondary school within Connected School project.
Thanks to Minister Matic. We now move to Alexandra. Alexandra, you already talked about the implementation of the digital education in North Macedonia. I would kindly ask you just to share with us some concrete experiences and then lessons learned during that process. How this implementation of digital education affected the educational process and the system as a whole.
Thank you, Kemal. As you can imagine, it was indeed quite challenging times for the education sector in Macedonia. But I'd say not only from Macedonia, but also in other Western worldwide. The fact that the schools closed in March 2020 actually got the system completely unprepared, both in terms of lacking policies and lacking practices for distance teaching and learning, especially in primary and secondary education. This resulted with the digital education, at least at the initial period, being implemented rapidly in an unplanned and unstructured manner. And although it led all stakeholders in the education system to swiftly adapt to new circumstances, opening up a space for innovations and creativity within the sector, it also created a substantial room for suboptimal practices. Namely, at the beginning of the pandemic, in the absence of digital education strategy and unified practices in this domain, different schools, as you can see in the slide, and even different teachers within the same schools, resorted to individual crisis solutions for communicating with the students, for sharing teaching materials, and for assessing students' progress. The initial findings from a survey on the experience of principals, teachers, and parents with the online and distance learning in North Macedonia in the 1920 school year indicate heavy inefficiency in the teaching process. Namely, high percentage of parents who participated in the survey, a bit less than 50% actually, assessed the digital education in that period as completely or partially ineffective, while only 15% viewed it as effective or very effective. Except for the teachers who received an average grade of 3.5, the overall implementation of the digital education in the respective school year at school level and at state level was graded. Is it okay? I can continue.
We have an interpreter probably.
Jumping in the... Okay. Okay, no worries. I can continue.
Okay, Alexandra, maybe you can continue. I think that interpreters are probably not well assigned to their channels, so we are hearing their voice as well.
Okay.
Ajde ja što preuzem da ti probaj s kim da pričam. Da vidimo nešto se slučilo.
Can I kindly ask the technical support just to the translation and turn off the Alexandra.
Okay, I think it's better now, yeah. So as you can see on the slide, the overall implementation of the digital education in the respective school year at school level and at state level was graded with 2.9 and 2.7 respectively. This prompted the Ministry of Education and Science to swiftly approach conceptualizing, designing, developing, and implementing a national platform for digital learning, or for distance learning, as we call it here, with an objective to have it operational for the beginning of 2021 school year. The primary goal of the national platform was to ensure equal standards and consistent practices of synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning during the health crisis across all the primary and secondary schools nationwide, which consists of approximately 256,000 students and about 28,000 teachers, and to provide all these services in all the 5 official languages of instruction in the country. The platform was designed and developed in close cooperation with different sectors from the quadruple helix, with an ultimate goal to enhance the quality and inclusiveness of education, as well as to facilitate the acquisition of digital competencies by all students. And although the national platform fulfilled fully its objectives, it should be noted that it was designed and implemented as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which happened several years ahead of the school's digitalization, which was planned with the strategic plan of the Ministry of Education and Science. And such premature integration of digital technologies in the education system in the country revealed many of its structural challenges, confirming thereby that digital education is undoubtedly a very complex process that involves multiple stakeholders and it requires massive structural changes. Namely, the process of digital transformation of schools necessitates a holistic, systematic, and coherent approach in effectuating policies on multiple fronts, not least in digital infrastructure and resources, top-level strategy and school leadership, teachers' professional development, what I mentioned during my first address, learning design and digital content, curriculum, pedagogy, as well as quality assurance. Consequently, the Ministry of Education and Science is fully committed to further continue its investments in these areas, thereby enabling the system to deliver quality and inclusive education for all the learners, and aligning education with the requirements of the job market of today and in the future, and with the priorities of the country for green transformation and equitable and sustainable growth. Thank you once again, Kemal.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you. We are moving very fast to Florența. Being aware of time, Florența, please could you just say a couple of sentences on how will the development of digital skills and digital transformation help us in achieving regional development priorities in the Western Balkan 6?
Yes, so digital transformation, of course, is an essential change in the process of using digital technologies to create new experiences, opportunities, innovative business processes, and market requirements. So embracing digital transformation by all key stakeholders in the region is very important, because it helps in ensuring greater availability of digital infrastructure and enabling better and improved regulatory framework that provides regulatory stability and consistency over time. So this is very crucial for the Western Balkan region to grow. It can strengthen cooperation within the Western Balkans, as well as increase the convergence with the EU and improve the business environment. So the Albanian government, along with all the other governments in the Western Balkan countries, has embarked from 2017 on a journey to establish a regional economic area and the multi-annual action plan, and then the CRM, which is the Common Regional Market plan last year. So we are working towards this direction in order to implement joint initiatives when it comes to digital transformation and innovation. These are two very important pillars in these action plans. So all these new realities that we are facing, they call for these adjustments of the socioeconomic transformation of the region, but also underpinning and upgrading the approach towards digital and innovation agendas, transition to a green economy, dynamic industrial policy, and support for the private sector, and strengthen the human capital. So to change the situation for the better and achieve these goals, Western Balkan 6 countries are turning to innovation and digitalization, and should be their focus in the years to come. We need to coordinate very well with ourselves, with the governments, so in order to be able to develop the regional innovation ecosystem. And the joint platforms can be a way to do this, like joint platform, for example, for tourism operators, a joint platform for diaspora in order to take advantage of the brain circulation, etc. So we are working towards this direction with actual measures. So this is in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Florența. And now moving back to Ms. Alia, you already spoke about the need to address the digital gender divide. Could you just briefly say what are the changes that you want to see in let's say, 5 years' time?
Thank you, Kamal, and I will make it short and sweet. I want to connect this again with global initiatives that regional partners are getting involved in, particularly the Generation Equality Initiative that was launched this year, and the forum was launched in Mexico City and in Paris earlier this year. And through this initiative, there are several action coalitions that have been formed, multi-stakeholder action coalitions, and the topics for these coalitions were determined through a global conversation that took over a year to see what would be those key areas that we need to work on to accelerate progress towards gender equality. And one such action coalition is on innovation and technology for gender equality. So this is really an important partnership. We're very happy to see that ITU is one of the action coalition leaders. We also have incredible buy-in from the region, from member states, private sector, and regional organizations like RCC, amongst others. And as we shape the recovery from the pandemic, we have to really make sure that we're not thinking just in the immediate term, but have a longer term vision. We can talk about 5 years, but we only have 9 years left until we can reach those targets that are at the center of the 2030 agenda. So just to focus in on key actions that are not just what I am saying, but what these coalition members are saying based on really like intensive conversations that have happened over the last year and a half. They're talking about really accelerating this access to technologies and digital literacy that we've been talking about. So we really need concrete actions by all partners and all partners together. There's also an emphasis on increasing investments towards women's leadership as innovators. And this increase needs to be 50% increase. It's very ambitious. And I would like to also focus in on what Minister Zenic was mentioning in terms of investing in enabling environment and really to differentiate between experimentation and innovation. We need to foster experimentation. When it succeeds, it's innovation. When it fails, it's learning. And we really need to build this culture and create that enabling environment. We also have to establish new networks and new benchmarks to transform those ecosystems that we've been talking about. So we really can double the proportion of women who are working in technology and innovation in the next 5 years. And finally, we really need to implement very concrete policies against online and tech facilitated gender-based violence and discrimination. We need to take it seriously. It's not an easy thing to do. We need all partners on board. I think we all know technology is an integral part of our world, but we need to make sure that we are giving equal access to that technology to all women and girls across the region, across the world. So to achieve gender equality, girls and young women have to secure this access. They need the digital training and literacy, and they need to feel that they are safe online. On the occasion of the International Day of the Girl Child, which is today, I would invite you all to put girls and young women at the center of what we do, and let's make sure that we bring all our efforts together globally, regionally, and nationally to make a better future for us all. And just to end here, to give voice to these young women and girls that are so inspiring, I invite you to watch a short video on the power of inclusive digital work. And thank you very much, Kamal.
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Amina and I'm very passionate about IT and change making. Gender stereotypes don't make any sense to me because we can all contribute in the change making process equally. And we have to work together if we want to see those changes. In my opinion, for girls to become change makers, they need an inspiration. There should be some kind of platform where they could find that inspiration and bring their ideas to life. That platform should contain success stories from female change makers, organized events and meetups, and grants where they can find financial support for their ideas and projects. Thank you.
Ćao, ja sam Ona i jako mi je drago što ću sudjelovati u ovome. Ja sam učenica 3. gimnazije u Sarajevu i idem na IT smjer. U mom razredu je nažalost samo 5 djevojaka koje su odlučile da razbiju sve stereotipe i predrasude da je ovaj smjer samo za dječake. Smatram da je IT svijet mašte i da se svaka djevojka može pronaći tu i da su svoju maštu prenese u neke programe. Također smatram da svaka djevojka može igrati gamerske igrice, praviti robote, eksperimentisati i naravno programirati.
Hello my IT girls! I'm Zaira, and I have a piece of advice for you. If they tell you it's not a woman's job or a girl cannot do that, prove them wrong, because guess who was the first programmer in the world? Ada Lovelace, and she's a woman, right? We can do it, girls.
Thank you very much. Just to close this panel, I mean, the message is clear, digital transformation, yes, but not without the girls. So let me close this panel by quoting Simon Sinek, who said, the value of our learnings multiplies when we share what we learn with others. With that, with those closing words, on behalf of the audience, let me express my deepest gratitude to all panel members for providing such valuable insights. Thanks also to the audience, our technical support, and finally, interpreters, for whom I hope we haven't been difficult to follow. Thank you very much. See you all on the next panel devoted to digital skills for smart and inclusive growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Kemal. Thank you very much, and thanks
Thank
to
you.
all your
Bye.
amazing panelists. And now, ladies and gentlemen, grab your cup of coffee in one hand and your mobile device in the other, and browse through our platform during the coffee break, where you can discover a lot of interesting features that our platform offers. Among them, the possibilities to schedule the meeting with other participants, but you can also explore our virtual booths. You can be inspired by inspiring cases or assist to our lightning talks. Thank you very much, and see you at 11:35 with the second session. Thanks.